The 24th of January 1926, Volume 18. The Divine Will is mother of all human wills. In the Divine Will there are no deaths. I felt all abandoned by heaven and by the earth, and I thought to myself that Jesus had told me a long time before that I was to live in the hard exile of life as if there were no one else but Jesus and I. Everyone was to disappear from my mind and my heart. And now, after everything has disappeared from me, and I am used to living only with Jesus, he too has run away, leaving me alone, prey to unspeakable bitternesses in this hard state of isolation. Oh, what pain! Have pity on me. Come back to the one who feels the need of your life more than of her own life. Now, while I was thinking of this and of other yet more harrowing things which it would be too long to say, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior, and sighing he told me, "Daughter of my supreme volition, courage in your isolation. This serves as company for my will, abandoned by creatures. The sorrow of its isolation, oh, how harder than yours it is. My will is the mother of all the wills of creatures. As most tender mother, she left herself in the centre of creation in order to deliver the human wills and keep them all around herself, to raise them upon her knees, nourish them with the milk of her celestial teachings, and make them grow in her likeness, giving them all creation in which to amuse themselves. And since my will is centre of each created thing, wherever the creatures would go, she, as centre of all things, would remain always near them, more than affectionate mother, that they might never lack her maternal cares nor descend from her nobility and likeness. But alas, these daughters, the human wills, delivered by this celestial mother, my will, despising and neglecting all her maternal cares, her love, her tendernesses and attentions, even though my will is near them, these human wills are far away from this mother. Many of them don't even know her. Others despise her and make fun of her. Poor mother, which is my will, in the midst of so many daughters delivered by her, she remains isolated, abandoned. And while all of them take from her own in order to live, they use it to grow in dissimilarity from her and to offend her. Can there be greater sorrow for a mother than the abandonment of her children? Not to be known by the fruit of her own womb, which turning into enemies, offend the one who brought them to the light? Therefore the sorrow of isolation of my will is great and inconceivable. So may your isolation be the company of this isolated mother, who cries and searches for her children, but as much as she cries, shouts and calls her children, whether with the most tender voices, with the most bitter tears, with the most ardent sighs, or with the most thundering voices of chastisements, these unruly children keep far away from the womb of she who generated them. My daughter, do you not want to share as true faithful daughter of my will in her sorrow and in her isolation? Then after this I began to do the adoration to my crucified good, but before my mind passed a long line of soldiers all armed up, which never ended. I would have wanted to think about my crucified Jesus rather than see soldiers, but against my will I was forced to see these soldiers, equipped for anything. So I prayed my sweet Jesus to take that sight away from me, that I might be free to be with him. And Jesus, all afflicted, told me, "My daughter, the more it seems that the world is apparently in peace, and they sing the praises of peace, the more they hide wars, revolutions, and tragic scenes for poor humanity under that ephemeral and masked peace. And the more it seems that they favour my church and sing hymns of victories and triumphs, the practices of union between state and church, the closer the brawl is which they are preparing against her. The same was for me. Up until they acclaimed me as king and received me in triumph, I was able to live in the midst of the peoples. But after my triumphant entrance into Jerusalem, they no longer let me live. And after a few days, they shouted at him, "Crucify him!" All taking arms against me, they made me die. When things do not start from a foundation of truth, they have no strength to reign for a long time, because since truth is missing, love is missing, and the life that sustains it is missing. Therefore, what they were hiding easily comes out, and they turn peace into war and favours into revenges. Oh, how many unexpected things they are preparing. Jesus disappeared, and I remained all afflicted, thinking to myself, my beloved Jesus has told me many times that I was the little newborn of the divine will, just newly born, without having formed my little life in his supreme volition. And now that I am most in need in order to form my growth, Jesus leaves me alone. So I will be like an aborted birth in the divine will, without having existence. Don't you see then, my love, in what a pitiful state I find myself, and how your very designs upon me are reduced to nothing? Oh, please, if you do not want to have pity on me, have pity on yourself, on your designs and on your works, which you have made for my poor soul. But while my poor mind wanted to go further into the sorrowful state I was in, my beloved good came out from within my interior, and looking at me thoroughly from head to foot told me, my daughter, in my will there are neither deaths nor abortions, and one who lives in it contains as life the life of my will, and even if she feels herself dying or even dead, she is in my will, which containing life makes her rise again in every instant to new light, to new beauty, grace and happiness, delighting in preserving her always little within itself. Always little within itself, so as to have her great with itself. Little but strong, little but beautiful, just newly born, so that she might have nothing human, but everything divine. So her life is my will alone, which will carry out all my designs without dispersing anything. You will be like the drop of water submerged within the great sea, like the grain of wheat amidst the great masses of grains. As much as the drop of water seems as though disappeared within the sea, just as the grain amidst the innumerable grains, no one can deny or take away from them the right that their life exists. Therefore do not fear, and make it so that you lose your life in order to acquire the right to have my will alone as life. End of the reading. The 24th of January 1932, Volume 30. Every little visit of Jesus is bearer of celestial truths. One who lives in the divine will is under the reign of the new act of God. Example of the flower. How every act done in the divine will is a stair. Office of Mother. I felt myself all worried about the so many truths that blessed Jesus had told me about his divine will, and while I felt the sacred deposit of his truths in me, together I felt a holy fear of how I guarded them in my poor soul, and how many times left them badly exposed, without that attention that befits the truth that contains infinite value. And oh, how I would want to imitate the blessed, that while they know so much about the divine will, they do not say anything to even one of the poor pilgrims. They keep it all with themselves. They beatify each other. They felicitate each other. But from up there they do not send even one word in order to make known one single truth of the so many that they know. But while I thought this, my amiable Jesus, visiting my little soul, all goodness told me, my daughter, every word that I have told you about my divine will has been nothing other than so many little visits that I have made you, leaving in you the substance of the good that every word of mine contains, and not trusting myself to you, because you were incapable of guarding one single word of mine, I left myself to guard the infinite value of my truths that I deposited in your soul. Therefore your fears are not just. I am at watch over everything. They are celestial truths, things of heaven, outpourings of love, repressed in my will and for so many centuries. And before deciding to speak to you already, I decided to remain in you in order to guard what I deposited in you. You enter into the secondary order. I am the first guardian. Now you will bring these little visits of mine, bearers of celestial things, with you into the celestial fatherland as triumph of my will and as guarantee that its kingdom will not only come on earth, but that it has established its beginning of its reigning. Those that will remain on paper will leave in perennial memory that my will wanted to reign in the midst of the human generations, and they will be spurs, incitements, divine supplications, irresistible strength, celestial messengers, commanders of the kingdom of my divine fiat, and also potent reproaches for one who must occupy himself with making known such a good, and who, because of laziness and vain fears, does not let them go around through the whole world, so that they bring the glad news about the happy era of the kingdom of my will. Therefore abandon yourself in me, and let me do. So I continued my acts in the divine will, in which everything it had done in creation is all in act, as if then it was creating the same, in order to give them as outpouring of its love for the creature. And since I am too little, I could not take them all together, and I go little by little, even where I can reach. And the divine love awaits me in each created thing, in order to repeat and duplicate the creating act, and tells me, do you see how much I love you? For you I created them. For you I conserve the creating act, in order to tell you, not with words alone, but with deeds, I love you. I love you so much that I am drowned by love. I yearn, I am delirious, because I want to be loved, so much so that in creating creation before you, I prepared for you the way, all of love. By maintaining the creating act in act, I tell you in every instant, I love you and I want love. Therefore, I went through created things in order to not leave the loving craftsman sorrowful, because I might not have received his love that he had placed in each created thing that he had put there for me. And arriving at the exuberant act of love of the creation of man, I felt myself under the reign of this intense love. My always lovable Jesus told me, blessed daughter, our way with creatures never changes. As it had the beginning of manifesting itself in creation, so it continues and will always continue, always. Now one who enters into our will touches with her own hand our creating act, always in act, and our love, always new, in the act of giving itself to the creature. But it is not only our love, but our great love that makes us put it forth from our bosom and places life over them, new goodness, new power, new sanctity, new beauty, in a way that we have the creature under the reign of our new acts, always new and always in act. So the whole of creation is always in the act of repeating itself and giving itself to them. And since our ways are always equal and never change, what we do with the blessed in heaven, nourishing their beatitude with our new, without ever ceasing, act, so we do for one who lives in our divine will on earth. We feed her life with new sanctity, new goodness, new love. We keep her under the reign of our new and always in act acts, with this difference, that the blessed acquire nothing new, they only swim in the new joys of their Creator. On the other hand, the fortunate pilgrim who lives in our volition is always in act of making new conquests. So one who does not do and does not live in our divine will renders herself estranged from the celestial Father, nor does she know the goods of her celestial Father, and hardly does she take little drops of the love of the goods of her Creator. She herself renders herself illegitimate daughter, who does not have full rights to the possessions of her divine Father. Only my will gives the right of children and gives her the freedom of taking what she wants from the house of her celestial Father. One who lives in our will is like the flower that remains on the plant, and the Mother Earth feels the duty of giving to the root of the flower a place in her own house, of nourishing it with her vital humours that she possesses, of keeping it exposed to the rays of the sun in order to colour it. And she awaits the nocturnal dew, so that her flower could receive sufficient humours in order to resist the burning kisses of the sun, in order to let it develop and receive the most intense and most beautiful colour and fragrance. In fact, one can say the Mother Earth is the food and the life of the flower. So is the soul who lives in our will. We must give her the place in our house, and more than mother, nourish her, make her grow, and give her so much grace as to be able to sustain and be exposed, inside and outside, to the burning light of the immensity of our will. On the other hand, one who does not do and does not live in it is like the flower snatched from the plant and placed in vases. Poor flower, it has already lost its mama, who with so much love nourished it and held it exposed to the sun in order to warm it and colour it. And although there is water in the vase, it is not the mother who gives it to the flower. Therefore it is not nourishing water, and despite being kept in the vase, still it is subject to withering and dying. Such is the soul without my will. She lacks the divine mama who has generated her. She lacks the nourishing and fecundating virtue. She lacks the maternal heat that warms her with its light, gives her the brushstrokes of beauty in order to render her beautiful and flourishing. Poor creature without the tendernesses and love of the one who has given her life, how she will grow weak and without beauty and as withered in true good. After this I was going around in the divine will in order to find all the acts of creatures, in order to place my I love you and ask in each act of the creature for the kingdom of the divine will on earth. And my sweet Jesus added, My daughter, when my divine will is invoked in the act of the creature, it removes the roughness of the human will, sweetens its ways, represses the violent ways, and with its light warms the works numbed by the cold of the human volition. So one who lives in my divine will prepares the preventative grace for the human generations in order to make it known, and each of her acts in it forms the stair in order to climb, first her and afterwards creatures, in the knowledges of the supreme will, the supreme fiat. In fact, it gives the maternal virtue to one who lives in my divine will, and it gives her the office of doing before God and before creatures the office of true mama. See therefore the necessity of your acts in order to form a long stairway that must touch heaven in a way as to use violence with its own divine strength, so that my fiat descends upon the earth and forms its kingdom there, making the first people found on this stairway, the ones who receive it and lend themselves to letting it reign in their midst. Without the stairway one cannot climb. Therefore it is necessary that one creature make it in order to give the field of letting the others climb. And in order to make it that this one would lend herself, we must give her the office of mother, who, loving creatures as her children, given to her by my divine will, accepts the mandate and does not spare herself either fatigues or sacrifices, and if necessary even life itself, for love of these children. More so because, in giving her the office of mother, my divine will endow the soul with maternal love, makes her feel these children in her own heart, and that gives her divine and human tenderness in order to conquer God and the creature and unite them together so as to make him do his divine will. There is no greater honour that we can give to the creature than maternity. She is bearer of generations, and we give her the grace of forming our chosen people. And although maternity says sorrow, yet she will feel joy all divine in seeing the children of my will come forth from within the sorrow. Therefore always repeat your acts and do not withdraw. Withdrawing is for the cowardly, the lazy, the inconstant, not for the strong, much less for the children of my will. End of the reading.